One of the concerns that I had when reviewing the language that was in this plan was that we know in the spring of 2022, in April of 2022, we saw, or I'm sorry, May of 2022, we saw those case counts spike to levels that the CDC was indicating high community transmission. And at the time of that surge, the recommendation from the CDC was that, at that level of community spread, additional mitigation measures would be put in place. And within our school district, we did not initiate changes in mitigation measures or have an active dialogue related to that change in conditions. So recognizing that we have 2 years of data of spikes, those 2 years of data of surges took place during different variant surges. So, we're recognizing that there's a potential for a change and changing conditions. I think that it's appropriate to discuss mitigation measures to account for that potential to occur again. I know we all have fatigue. I know that we all, want to be optimistic, but in my opinion, the point of a health and safety plan is to have a plan should that occur. So in addition to those historical spikes, I think there's some other opportunities or basis for a little bit more clarity in what our plans are. So specifically, I think that we should be, prepared to say in more clarity or definitive statements what we are and are not, willing to do with respect to a potential adjustment. So I think from an overall, stakeholder management perspective, that I think it's fair for everyone to understand kind of what those bounds of potential change would look like. So I'd like to open the dialogue for potential changes. The potential changes that I would like to discuss, I feel like are consistent with language that other school districts within Chester County, are proposing in their plans. And then I'd also like to state that the language that's being, proposed for change is consistent with language and recommendations that the Chester County Health Department, currently propose, Pennsylvania Department of Health, Pennsylvania Department of Education, and then the CDC. And the bottom line is, Chester County Department of Health, PDE, PA Department of Health are all leaning towards CDC guidance. So I think we should be willing to, consider acknowledging that should conditions change, that we would follow CDC guidance for that change. And then I also think we should be having a discussion as to what is that criteria and what are those metrics for evaluating that potential change. So that's essentially the basis for why I wanted to remove that from the consent agenda and have a discussion about that potential change.
Are there any other comments or discussion on the health and safety plan?
Just a question for Dr. O'Donnell. You experienced what we did at State College last year. What is your recommendation? Because I'm not interested in changing anything at the moment. I'm comfortable with, we're going to watch the numbers and we're going to talk with the health department and do the things that we did last year. And certainly there's nothing to prevent us from having an emergency meeting if something were to to go south quickly.
The lessons learned over the past 2.5 years, and every week I've met with an epidemiologist and 2 head pediatricians and from the 2 biggest practices in our community. And, if you go back to the start of the pandemic and work your way through, things really changed. And I think some of the mistakes that we experienced were some of the rigidity. So we don't know what we don't know right now. So trying to make arbitrary threshold points, I think, in and what we experienced, I don't think that would be a good move. That's why we didn't put it in here. I met with the representative from the Department of Health, with every superintendent in the county as well. And I met, obviously, with our team to understand how we experienced decision-making here. Where I was, the board authorized me and our leadership team to make changes. Here, we haven't asked for that. We would come back to you in a public meeting with any recommended changes to the plan. I think we're at such a different point right now with what actually happens when someone contracts COVID-19. Obviously, with vaccines, we're just at such a different place. And a case right now means a lot. It's very different than what it meant 2 years ago. And so we're not being told that we should be mandating things. So we didn't put, any type of forecasting of mandates in there. That's the key, right? When we're honoring kids and staff who come in, and we want an environment where people feel comfortable to make their choices. And we know much more about the types of masks that do help you, as far as if you encounter someone who is positive and not symptomatic. So we're in a different place with that knowledge too. So that's why the plan looks the way it does. And as you see what we did in the community where I was, and I was running point, and it hurt, but we made decisions based on what the experts were advising us. And right now they're not telling us we should mandate these things. So that's why. But if, I have kids in school too. If kids or our employees, I'm here rubbing elbows with everybody. If we're in harm's way, we're going to have a meeting. And I'm going to share what the public health professionals are telling us. There's no secrets. So that's why it looks the way it looks. And our team, we discussed it. And although it's a requirement for ESSER, we've had the discussion, and we think right now this is a reasonable step with where we are. As the students shared, people are pretty fired up to be back in school right now. It's a positive energy that I feel refreshed. I hope our employees feel refreshed. We had an opening day meeting, and we ended on a note with kids that I thought was spot on for what we need in public education, because that's why we all signed up for this. And so the plan, to the point, I respect differing views, including obviously Director Strobridge's. This is, hopefully that gives you a little background of why we propose what we propose. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?